Full Court Trad Pod coming at you here, ready to preview what's a big week of hoops to come. We got some marquee matchups on Tuesday, Wednesday, really all throughout the week. I mean, this is the time of year, college basketball-wise, that we live for. Blake, should we get straight into it?
Yep, let's do it, man.
Let's do it. We got a lot to talk about here. Starting on Tuesday night, tomorrow, January 21st, Mississippi State, they're going into Rocky Top, number 14 versus number 6. This is going to be a big-time matchup in the SEC, Blake. Both of these teams coming off some big conference games this weekend. Tennessee took the loss to Vandy, and then Mississippi State defended their home court against Ole Miss in that rivalry game. Both these teams sit at 3-2 in the SEC as well right now, so this is some separation time if you're Chris Jans and Rick Barnes looking at this matchup.
Yeah, I think in this one, the biggest question in this game's got to be Chaz Lanier on the Tennessee side. He's really struggled, I feel like, in SEC play, or at least he's not lived up to how he was playing a non-conference. There was, like, at one point, conversations to be made about him being, like, one of the top scorers in all the country in non-conference. And now at conference play, I think he's averaging, like, what is it, like under 13 points a game, around 13 points a game.
Yeah, it's been
not
pretty
super
rough.
efficient shooting.
Really,
And
his only good game was against Arkansas, not to cut you off there. But
nah, you're good. And that's not really a big game to like, or a good team to have it against, because as we've talked about, and many show, Arkansas probably not going to make the tournament. One of the worst teams in the SEC, so like that's not really something to be like super ecstatic about. And I feel like he was a no-show against Florida. I don't think he did much against Georgia, really. Or against Texas, that is, my bad. Vanderbilt, he kind of showed some inconsistency. Kind of lost him the game. But, yeah, I definitely think Tennessee needs to get Chaz Lanier in check in this game. Mississippi State's a really physical team, and it being that Tennessee, I do give them the edge in this one, with Mississippi State being away from home. And then on the Mississippi State side as well, I think the biggest question is Josh Hubbard in this one. It's like the same can be said like how we talked about Chaz Lanier. Hubbard's really struggled from the field lately. He's not really produced offensively as well as he probably would have hoped for. He's not very efficient right now, just not getting the shots to fall. So I think this is a big game to have a bounce back in.
yeah, no, and I mean, you alluded to Josh Hubbard. I mean, talk about some must-see TV. You got Josh Hubbard and Zakai Ziegler at the point guard matchup there. Those are two all-SEC caliber guys. We know what Josh is capable of when he's clicking, and Zakai, I mean, him being the defensive presence that he's been for years now, he can lock up even the best scorers in the country, so that's definitely going to be intriguing. Chaz, you mentioned him. If he can get it rolling, and what I really want to see out of this game, if I'm a Tennessee fan, you want to get Chaz Lanier going because we've mentioned it many times before. This is the guy that Rick Barnes, he brought in to be the dude. He said publicly, if you're not going to take your shots and make your money's worth with the NIL, I'm going to pull you. So obviously they're going to have some high expectations for him as we get further into conference play. And selfishly, as a college basketball fan, I'd love to see Hubbard and Chaz Lanier just go bucket for bucket and make this a real high-scoring shootout kind of a game. And then if you're Tennessee as well, I think a big thing you want to see is you want to see some more production from your bench because a large part of their struggles against Vandy was the fact that you really didn't get anything out of your bench guys. I mean, you had Jordan Gainey with 5, Cade Phillips 0, Darlin Stone Dubar, who's been good in spots, was 0. It's just sometimes I worry about this Tennessee team's overall depth, and when the guys are having their offensive struggles like they did at times in the Vandy game, that's when you really need some relief there. And, I mean, if you're Mississippi State, obviously, they've got quality pieces all around off the bench like Riley Kugel and Keyshawn Murphy. So I definitely think that this is going to go down the wire. And really, I think the X factor in the matchup to look forward to is if Zakai Ziegler can really stunt what Hubbard does, because he's kind of the spoon that stirs the drink there over Mississippi State and gets their offense going. I feel like if he can keep him in check, that Tennessee will get a bounce back win here. But I'm not picking Tennessee. I'm going with Mississippi State. I love what I've seen out of them so far. I do realize that this is on the road in a very tough environment. They're obviously going to be fired up and ready to go on Rocky Top, but I have my concerns about Mr. Lanier, as we've alluded to, and I'm really starting to wonder if he's going to be able to get things going. But if he does, Tennessee has the potential to be one of the best teams of the SEC and in the country. So I definitely think it'll be a close one, but I think I'm rolling with the Bulldogs here. Blake, you gonna stick with Rocky Top?
Yeah, I'm going Rocky Top here by like 6, 7, somewhere around there.
Now, I could see a world, too, where Tennessee just comes out pissed off and just, does their thing and blows the doors off Mississippi State, because that was a tough L for them on Saturday. They almost had the comeback, too. But more SEC action as well. We talked about Vanderbilt, the team that just knocked off Tennessee. I mean, no forgiveness in this league because their next test is going to be on the road at Alabama tomorrow night on Tuesday. And, yeah, I mean, Blake, we've said all year long, the SEC, it's a war. Every game you're going to be playing is against a quality opponent. And I mean, Vandy, they don't get any rewards for their upset there over Tennessee because they're right back to the grind going to an Alabama team that just got one of the most impressive wins of the season at Rupp Arena against Kentucky.
Yeah, it just goes to show how crazy the SEC is this year. Like, one game you're playing at Kentucky, next game you're at home against a team who most people probably weren't scared of coming into the season, but a team that's basically proven now. They just took down Tennessee. So, like, it's SEC is no pushover at all. Any team in the SEC, I feel like, even Arkansas at this point. I mean, I don't think they're a complete pushover. But I think in this game, the biggest highlight has got to be Jason Edwards. I mean, the kid's a bucket getter. He's like shooting 38% from three this year, nearly 46% from the field, and he's averaging, I think, a little over 17 a game. And then you add in his one steal a game. So this is a guy who transferred over from like North Texas, I believe, and he's really just blown up in the spotlight. He's comfortable in the offense over there at Vanderbilt, and he's making the most of it. But I do feel like Alabama right now is too much to handle. Their offense is just unreal. They were like last year, they were known as like a 3-point shooting team. This year, I mean, they get a good amount of threes put up, but as like not as like extreme. I feel like they're more of like a dribble drive type of team than kick it out. But I mean, it's working to their favor so far, taking down the Kentucky team that's really deep. But yeah, I think Alabama's just going to be too much to overcome in this one.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I'm going to go with Alabama here too, to put it short and sweet. But you got to give credit to Mark Byington and what he's doing over there at Vandy, because I mean, last year they were going out in the first round of the SEC tournament, one of the bottom feeders in the conference, Jerry Stackhouse, kind of a program that was in flux, really didn't have much to show for it. He's turned it around at 15-3 so far this season, and just pulled off one of the better wins in Vandy program history, at least as of recently, against Tennessee. Yeah. So you got to give major kudos to what they're doing there, and they've got a squad that, I mean, they just proved it against Tennessee. They can get you on any given night. You mentioned Jason Edwards, A.J. Hoggard, a transfer from Michigan State. He's played quality minutes at big-time levels all throughout his career. I mean, there's guys on this team that can definitely make this team a challenge any given night for Tennessee and other teams as well. But Alabama, I alluded to it, had one of the most impressive wins, in my opinion, of the college basketball season. They went 2 up and they outscored one of the best offenses in the country. And obviously they're one of the best offensive units in the country as well. But there's just too much to overcome, at least on the road, for Vandy, in my opinion, when it comes to Alabama, because Grant Nelson, he's slowly starting to get more comfortable, it seems. Mark Sears, he's really starting to pick up production as the years gone on. We mentioned that he was kind of underwhelming in non-conference, but he's really starting to cook, and he played a hell of a game on Saturday as well. And then when you've got other guys to complement them like LeBaron Philon, Chris Youngblood, he stepped up in spots at Rupp on Saturday and made
He's a
big time
big
shots.
he's a big reemergence, like coming
Oh
off an
yeah.
injury since
Oh
that
yeah.
A&M game. He's done really well for them.
Yeah, he has. And then, I mean, Aiden Holloway, he's a talented scorer. He can get you buckets off the bench, and he's been doing it all year. And they've just got a really, really stout unit as a whole overall. It makes them one of the best teams in the SEC, and I think they're going to flex their muscles and take care of business here in Tuscaloosa. Not really much to unpack there, but hey, we could be wrong. Maybe Vandy goes in and pulls off a shocker. We're all for upsets on the Full Court Trap
Yep.
Pod, so get crazy, Commodore Nation. We won't hold anything against you. But let's transition over to the ACC. Louisville, the Reviville, they are now ranked in the top 25 for the first time since 2021. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into the AP poll here in a bit and the job that Pat Kelsey's done. But they've got a pretty tough test in the ACC. We've mentioned it's a conference that's underwhelming as a whole, but SMU, they've got a good squad there, and they've got the home court advantage here tomorrow night against Louisville, sitting at 14-4 on the year. And Blake, this seems like a spot to me if you're Louisville. They want to keep building their resume. They've gotten themselves into the top 25 after they had been mentioned on the bubble for actually the better part of the last few weeks. So I think if you want to keep trending things in the right direction, this is a bit of a trap spot where you just got to find a way to get out unscathed. And I think that it's going to be a tough task because this SMU team, they've got pieces to be competitive, and they've shown it so far. But I do think PK and the boys will come out with the win. I think Chucky Hepburn and Terrence Edwards, I've talked about those guys all year. I mentioned it in the preseason how I really liked the squad and thought they would make some noise, and they're starting to prove me right here, and I think they keep it going tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm gonna side with you in this one. Right now they're sitting at 8-game winning streak, and I think they make it 9 straight here this week against SMU at SMU. Uh, like you said, Rain Smith, Chucky Hepburn, those guys have done really well so far for Louisville. I'm really liking what Pat Kelsey's done with this program as well. Turned it from literally missing the tournament a couple years to now being back ranked. Like, I don't think hardly anyone really thought that was going to happen preseason, and now we're sitting here and they're ranked 25th in the top 25. So kudos to Kelsey. He's doing a phenomenal job, even after missing or losing Keshawn Pryor, one of their biggest pieces to start off the season. And then you add in Karan Johnson, or Corinne Johnson, my bad. He was another big role player for them that got hurt pretty early on. So to be doing what they're doing still with two major key players that are out for the season, unbelievable work by Pat Kelsey and company. So give me the Cardinals by probably like 5-4, something like that.
Yeah, I think they get the win here. I mean, this SMU team, it's not going to be easy by any means. They're going to make Louisville work for it. They've got quality guys over there. Kevin Miller, he's really been a bright spot for the Mustangs so far. He's averaging nearly 15 points a game this year. That team, they've got pieces, and they can definitely pull off a win here in this spot, but I just like what I'm seeing out of Louisville, and I'm going to ride the hot hand here. Pat Kelsey, I mean, as much as I despise Louisville from a rivalry side of things, college basketball is better when Louisville and Kentucky are good. So no complaints for me. It's better than when they were being the laughing stock of college basketball with Kenny Payne the last couple of years. But I think they keep things rolling. And transitioning back over to the SEC from the ACC, we've got a matchup tomorrow between Missouri and Texas. Missouri, they're a newly ranked team as well, along with Louisville coming in at number 22. Texas sitting at 12-6 on the year, and really has been underwhelming so far, I think, to say the least here. But this is a spot, Blake, where they can get things going here. They've got the home court. We've always mentioned on here that this Texas team isn't without talent. I do think that they may be held back a little bit by coaching overall. I'm not super high on Rodney Terry and his overall just body of work as a coach, but that's a different discussion for another day. Do we think that they have enough firepower here to take down a Missouri squad that's coming off a great win last week against Florida in the Swamp? And this team, they've earned the rank next to their name. They've surprised a lot of people in the SEC, and they're currently fighting at the top of the SEC, which I don't think anybody saw coming, really.
Do I think they got the firepower to win this game? Yeah. Do I think they overcome the Tigers in this one? Probably not. Missouri's pretty hot this year to start off the season in SEC play, and then you add in the win they had at Kansas or at Missouri against Kansas. Like that's a huge win for that program, and they've just completely reconstructed that program. I feel like guys like Mark Mitchell, Tamar Bates, Caleb Grill, Anthony Robinson, and etc. They've all bought into the program. They're doing really well on both sides of the floor. Primarily on the defensive end, you got guys like Anthony Robinson, the second, averaging 2 steals a game. Tamar Bates nearly averaging 2 steals a game. When you got guys that are perimeter defenders like that, it's tough to beat you. And I do think that's going to be the like key factor in this game. Is are those guys going to like be able to keep up with like Jordan Pope, Trey Johnson on the perimeter? Because I mean, being at Texas in this game, it's going to be tough to stop those guys and in transition and just on the perimeter as a whole. But I do think Missouri pulls this one off. I think it's going to go down to the wire, but I mean, I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah, I think Missouri definitely gets it done in a close one. I mean, you mentioned Mark Mitchell, Tamar Bates. They've got just quality players all around. And, I mean, you got to give credit to them as well because last year, obviously, we know they had the winless season there in conference play. And for Dennis Gates to completely turn it around and have them at 15-3 right now, 4-1 in the SEC, that's a hell of a job by him. I mean, and it's a testament to the Missouri athletic department as well because they easily, after last year, could have said, "You just went winless in SEC. You made history for all the wrong reasons. Like, just get out." But they stuck with him and they believed in his vision for the program, and it seems like he's getting it back on the right path. And I do think that they're going to end up winning this one. But if you're Texas, I mean, we talked about Jordan Pope, Trey Johnson, obviously, but they seem to be kind of the guys that carry that team and make them go. And I think if you're going to pull off a win here against a solid Missouri team, it's going to take another guy emerging like Arthur Kaluma. He's been really inconsistent. The talent's there. He was a really good player in years past. I remember at Creighton, he was a really highly touted transfer about 2 years ago now. That seems like such a long time ago, but I think you're going to have to get something out of him, or maybe Tremont Mark steps up and makes some big-time plays when you're not really expecting it. You got to take the load off Trey Johnson's shoulders and Jordan Pope's as well because those guys, they're obviously very talented. They have the ability to get going whenever, but this team as a whole, they've got to kick it into gear a little bit more if they want to go places in the SEC, and they got to get it going quick because as of today, I'd say they're probably teetering on that bubble line when it comes to the NCAA tournament, and they got to find a way to put themselves over the top because this conference, it's never going to get easier. But moving over to another good conference this season, the Big Ten, we got a late night matchup tomorrow, 9:30 Eastern time. The number 18 Wisconsin Badgers, they're going to UCLA. Mick Cronin, he's been making a lot of headlines recently. It seems like every other press conference he does, he's just been fuming, completely mad about something. He snapped on a reporter, I believe it was last weekend, that was talking about wondering how travel affects teams that come to that side of the country with this whole realignment thing. But that could be a whole nother video in itself. Mick Cronin, he's always been a hothead. But strictly from the basketball side of things here, Blake, we know Wisconsin, obviously, they've had good moments this year. John Tonji, he's been a real impact player. On the other side for UCLA, Tyler Bilodeau, he's been their stabilizing force for the Bruins as of this point this season. Do we think UCLA holds home court here and gets a much-needed ranked win, or is Wisconsin just going to go in and take care of business? I see you shaking your head, so I think I know what your answer is.
Yeah, I think Wisconsin's going to win this one. I feel like they're going to pull away in the second half. I just feel like John Blackwell and John Tonji are just too good right now for that Wisconsin team. They got like a 7-game win streak right now, including wins at USC, at Rutgers, at home versus Ohio State, and then at home versus Butler. So, I mean, they're solid wins. Not like really needle threading wins, but they're still solid wins. And then you got UCLA. They're top 25 to start the year. And then ever since I feel like it was like not UConn, UN
UNC.
CBS Sports Classic. I feel like ever since that on the downfall, whined a lot more. And it's not looking pretty over there right now for them. So give me the Badgers here by like 11 maybe. John Blackwell, I think I'm going to lock in a 15-plus game points-wise from him. And, yeah, I think Wisconsin's got this one.
Yeah, I kind of feel like this UCLA team as a whole, they're just kind of missing that guy that can consistently give you some relief at the guard spot. I mean, Sky Clark and Dylan Andrews, they've been decent in spots, but I mean, I wouldn't say they're special by any means. Eric Daly Jr., he's been pretty good this year as well, but I feel like a lot of where that team goes is kind of on Tyler Bilodeau's shoulders. And I mean, this is also a UCLA team that we can't forget is coming off of after that Iowa win they got right on last Friday. But before that, they had lost to Rutgers, Maryland, Michigan, and Nebraska, 4 losses in a row. So, I mean, this isn't a team that hasn't had to deal with some recent struggles. That if you are a UCLA fan, I mean, you can point to the fact that they are 9-1 at home this year. So they are pretty good when it comes to defending their home court. However, I agree with pretty much all of what you said. I think that John Tonji is just going to be too much for them, and I think Wisconsin goes in there and handles their business in a close one. But I don't have enough confidence in this UCLA group right now to take them in a match against a top 25 team that's really just looked better all around so far this year. But a couple of quick hitters here. We've got West Virginia, Iowa State, and Houston. They're all in action tomorrow against inferior teams. West Virginia, they're taking on a 10-7 Arizona State team. Iowa State, they host UCF over there at Ames. And then, if I'm remembering correctly, I believe Houston is hosting Utah. So I can't imagine we expect any upset spots there, Blake.
I'd hope not, but I mean, the only game that I feel like is like reasonably like upset watch, maybe UCF, depending on if like someone like Keyshawn Hall has a good game for UCF. Other than that, I don't really see any world where those other two teams win. I don't think Utah has enough firepower. Who's the other team you said?
Houston, they host Utah on Wednesday.
Who was the other team that played?
And then Iowa State plays UCF, and then Arizona State plays West Virginia on the road.
Yeah, I don't think Arizona State's got enough firepower right now either. Jaden Quaintance, he looks phenomenal. He can't even go pro until like after next year, so he has to stay 2 years in college. But I mean, if he had to go right now, like if he was able to go right now, he'd probably be a lottery pick. But yeah, I don't think either of those teams, besides maybe UCF, have enough firepower right now to get an upset.
I mean, obviously you don't want to say anything's impossible, but I really don't even see it with UCF because, I mean, this is an Iowa State team that just took an upset they weren't expecting at West Virginia. I mean, we said on the pod that it would be a tough game, but I don't think any of us expected them to go down, and
No,
they easily
that was shocking.
Yeah, they easily had one of their worst performances here. So I think this is a team that's going to come out with fumes just protruding from their head and going to want to just go out there and smash UCF, and I think they'll get that done. Iowa State, I love this team. I mean, we all do here on the pod. So I've got faith that they're going to go out and take care of business pretty handily. But
yeah, I think the same, but I mean, you never know, I guess.
Yeah.
UCF has like been actually decent against top 25 teams. Like their first game of the season was against, at the time, number 13 A&M. They won that game. They didn't barely lose. They lost pretty handily to Wisconsin. They got blown out by Kansas. They lost by 1 to Houston, who's a top 10 team. So, and then they also beat Texas Tech on the road. So, I mean, they do have a solid resume. But then again, like they do have some questionable losses. So this is really a game where you expect Iowa State to blow them out, but
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I mean it's not really even more so a slight to UCF than it is a testament to I just think this Iowa State team is that good. And when they play as bad as they did on Saturday, I just don't expect history to repeat itself with that group. There's too much solid just talent across the board there. I mean, Curtis Jones, Keshawn Gilbert, Taman Lipsey, Joshua Jefferson, Deshaun Jackson. I mean, that's a very well-rounded group, and they're a force in the Big 12, so I just expect them to get the train back on the tracks. But we mentioned Utah is going to Houston on Wednesday. There's some more Wednesday games that I want to highlight here. Florida, they're going on the road to South Carolina. Now, South Carolina, as we stand here today, is one of the bottom teams in the SEC. They're sitting at 10-8 on the year. Not really looking like a team that's going to have much juice and get into the tournament, but I mean, with the way the SEC is, it can get really unpredictable at times. Do we think that Florida gets a scare here from South Carolina, or do we think they're just going to go take care of business and some roadkill, to use a figure of speech?
I don't know, honestly. I do think Florida actually will put belt to ass in this one. This is going to be a good game for them to kind of keep it rolling after that win, the blowout win they had against Texas, and then the
Yeah.
loss against Missouri by 1. So this is the way to kind of keep like the foot on the pedal. Honestly, I mean South Carolina, they did take Auburn to OT, I think it was,
Yep.
but that was without Janai Broom for the second half, and he just kind of he didn't seem like on in that first half, anyways. So I do think they're just going to have too much firepower, that offense for Florida.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're South Carolina here, your biggest hope would be a Colin Murray Boyles just masterclass, and then you got to hope that Walter Clayton Jr. and Elijah Martin and Will Richard just aren't hitting. And I mean, to be quite frank, there's not going to be a whole lot of nights where they aren't on, because that's just a very talented overall offensive group. And Todd Golden, he's got that squad rolling. But I think they're going to take care of their business here, barring something crazy from South Carolina. But we can't discredit South Carolina completely, because they did take Auburn to the wire, and Auburn's has been a machine as of lately. So got to give
Yeah,
them their credit.
that Colin Murray Boyles has been insane this season.
Yeah, no, he's been great for them. He's averaging, I think, I forgot what it was. I think he's averaging around 16 a game. So he's been a stud. He's shooting the ball pretty well as well. So they've got the pieces there where they could get things a little bit frisky and maybe cause some upset potential there. I just like Florida too much in this spot, but we'll see what happens there. Speaking of teams that have upset potential, the TCU Horned Frogs, they just took out Baylor on Sunday on a game winner there from Brendan Wenzel. And now they've got Kansas coming to their place on Wednesday night, the number 12 team in the country, the Jayhawks. Kansas, they've been up and down this season, only sitting at 13-4 on the year. So on paper, you think, well, they're not really having that bad of a year. But when you really watch this team play, at times they kind of feel out of sorts, and it seems like the pieces aren't all fitting together there. And they're going to be going into a hostile environment here, Blake. So if you're a Jayhawk fan, you can't take TCU for granted, because they just showed. I mean, they took Scott Drew's Baylor team out on the road, and now you got to go to their home turf and go into that building and try and get one done with a fan base that's going to be rowdy and ready to go. I'm a little bit nervous here if I'm a Jayhawks fan.
Yeah, I don't think this game's a pushover at all for Kansas. I I don't want to say it, but I think TCU can pull this one off. This is a bit of a revenge tour for Ernest Uday. I think that's how you say it. I might have butchered it, but yeah, this is a revenge game for him. So it being at TCU and with how Kansas has struggled all year, I'm sure they're going to make it a problem on Wednesday. But I do think Kansas comes together and pulls this one off. I'm hoping AJ Storr and Hunter Dickinson can produce at a high level that game. Hunter Dickinson, he's kind of been not as good as we would want him to be, honestly. I mean, he's putting up double digits most of the time, but it's not super efficient. It's not done pretty. But yeah, give me Kansas in this one. I'll quit yapping.
Yeah, and I mean another note on this Kansas team. They did just have what was a kind of a scrappy game there. They only beat Kansas State by 10 over the weekend, and that's a Kansas State team that, to put it quite frankly, has been garbage this season so far. So
Yeah.
I definitely think that Kansas's shaky performances as of lately are a cause for concern going into this matchup. I
Mm-hmm.
think that somebody is going to have to step up offensively besides Zeke Mayo because he's been really the main scorer for that squad. And I'm not necessarily sure if that's what Bill Self wanted going into this season because I think AJ Storr was kind of brought in to sort of be that guy, and he hasn't really fit that billing just yet. And I mean, Rylan Griffin, he was an offensive piece that you really liked coming out of the portal, was on that Final Four team with Bama. He hasn't really contributed much of anything as of lately. So I think there's a lot of guys on this team that need to get going, Hunter Dickinson included. I mean, this guy coming into the year, we were talking about him in National Player of the Year conversations, and it feels like he's just kind of been completely phased out of that by Cooper Flagg and Janai Broome, which I mean is
Yeah.
respectable. Those are two of the best players in the country, but I definitely think TCU is going to be scrappy in this one. I don't know if I have enough confidence to predict an upset outright, but I do think that regardless of what the outcome of this game is, it's going to be close. And Kansas can't go into there thinking that they're just going to take care of business against a subpar team because they've already proven that they can take down decent squads. I mean, Baylor, say what you want about them. Scott Drew has a good program there, and they're not a pushover by any means. But moving over to the Big East, Xavier, they had a big result over the weekend, taking down Marquette, and now they get to take on another ranked team going to St. John's Wednesday night. Blake, this Xavier team, they've been in spots this year. They've been very scrappy with the Big East. They almost beat Marquette back in December, and then they did beat them last weekend. So this team obviously has the potential to be up there with the best of them. They gave UConn a 5-point scare back in like mid-December. I don't know if I'm going to pick an upset here, but I'm kind of leaning that way almost. I don't know if I'm super sold on St. John's in this spot. Xavier, they're starting to get Zach Freemantle back after that injury that he had a couple of weeks back. So if you're a Xavier fan, you got to be encouraged with what you saw over the weekend, but you're not going to get an easy test here having to go to St. John's on Wednesday.
Yeah, this Xavier team is really hard to get a grip on. I feel like they've been really like up and down all season. Granted, they had Freeman go down at one point. He's been one of their best, if not the best player on that team, minus Ryan Conwell. But I mean, they've been like up and down all season long from the get go. Like they lost at TCU early in the season, got blown out by almost 30 when Michigan was unranked. Lost at Cincinnati, lost to UConn. That's not a bad loss, but then they lost to Georgetown, and then they also did lose at home against St. John's. I think a month ago or something like that. Freeman played in this game at 22, and it just wasn't enough to overcome because Zuby Edgefior, something like that, had 18, and St. John's kind of just dominated that second half. Um, let's see, Kadari Richmond had 12, 4, 6, and 3 in that game. And then you got guys like RJ Lewis and Aaron Scott chipping in, Simeon Wilcher. I just think that St. John's team is too deep for Xavier to win uh, in this one. So give me St. John's by 8, maybe. That was 10 point deficit last time. So give me St. John's by like 8.
Yeah, I think, God, this is such a tough spot because, like you said, Xavier's such a hard team to get a read on. It feels like any game they played this year, no matter what the talent gap is, who they're playing, what environment it's in, they've been chippy and they've been close. So I really do want to pick Xavier here, but I don't think I have enough confidence to. So I'm going to go with Kadari Richmond and Ricky P over at St. John's to take care of business. But I could very well see myself being wrong. But moving on from this one into one of the games that I'm most excited about this week in the SEC, Texas A&M and Ole Miss on Wednesday night. This game is in Oxford. Wade Taylor, he's back into the equation for Texas A&M. He played on Saturday against LSU, so that's obviously very encouraging for them. We talked about how for A&M you wanted to get him back soon because you can't rely on Zurich Phelps to be the main guy for you. And I mean, he's talented. He's having a good year so far, averaging around 15 a game. But Wade Taylor, he brings the juice for that team. He's been a big part of what Buzz Williams has been building there the last couple of years. And Blake, this is going to be a really intriguing matchup. Number 13 versus number 16. Obviously, we mentioned the SEC up at the top. There's so many quality teams. And like the Mississippi State-Tennessee game early this week on Tuesday, this is going to be another spot where if you're Chris Beard and Buzz Williams, you're looking here if you want to advance up the standings in the top of the food chain in the SEC. This is really a separation spot here because Ole Miss sitting at 15-3, I believe only the one or two conference losses, excuse me. Yeah, they are definitely a force to be reckoned with in the SEC. So I'm going to be intrigued to see how this one plays out.
Yeah, I'm intrigued too. I mean, this is two teams that really like make you play their pace and tempo of basketball. I mean, Ole Miss is like top 15 in that. I think A&M's like top 25, 30-ish. I forget off the top of my head. But yeah, this is going to be a fun game to watch. I'm intrigued to see how Wade Taylor bounces back. I think he struggled. I'm going off the top of my head in his return. But I do think he can get it going in this one. I think it's going to be a down to the wire type of game as well.
Yeah, for sure. Also,
Give me. I forgot to give my prediction. Give
oh,
me.
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe. This is a hard one to do. Just give me A&M, but I think it's going to be decided by like 2-3 points. And if I'm wrong, oh well.
Also, I misspoke. Ole Miss only has the one conference loss so far, not two. But
And then they held Bama to like, what, 64 points earlier this week? Or last week, I mean.
Yeah, on the road, too. They've been impressive. Yes. But I'm going to roll with you here. I think A&M hands them a second conference loss. I think Wade Taylor, his reemergence is going to be key in this one. You want to see him get back to doing what he does and showing that he's still maintaining his level of play post-injury. And I think that he will. Him and Zurich Phelps, when they're playing together, they can get hot at any time, and they're a quality duo there. So I think that they're going to go on the road here and take care of some business. And another SEC matchup here before we cap off the preview section. We just cut a whole video on this team, Blake. The Arkansas Razorbacks, dead last in the SEC. They've got Georgia coming to their home court. Do we think they finally get one here? I don't think they do because Cal mentioned that Boogie Flan's going to be out for a period of time here. That's another blow to what is already, to be frank, not a good basketball team. And Georgia, I mean, they're coming off a rough week, dropped out of the rankings, but nobody's going to fault you for losing to Tennessee and Auburn in the same week. I think that Asa Newell goes on the road here and has a big-time performance, and Blue Cane lights it up, and I think the Razorbacks' winless streak is going to stay intact for now, at least.
Yeah, I agree. I think Silas DeMary and Blue Cane are going to be having their way all night. DJ Wagner and John L. Davis, I don't think they're going to be stop those two. And then you take Boogie Flan out of the equation, and you get a shit show basically for Arkansas is what I'm predicting. Georgia by 10.
Georgia by 10, yeah. I could honestly see it get
maybe
worse
15.
Than that. Yeah. There's just nothing to be inspired about with this Arkansas team right now. I mean, just the vibe around this program, it's just, I mean, check out our video on them. We talked for about 20 minutes about everything that's wrong with Arkansas basketball and John Calipari, but there's a lot to fix there in Fayetteville, and I really don't think that they're going to be able to fix it this season at least. But before we get out of here and watch the national championship, Blake, let's talk about the AP poll real quick. So we had some notable changes. Baylor, they obviously dropped out after the TCU loss. We saw two teams emerge into the top 25. Missouri gets in there at 22. Louisville make an appearance at 25. I'm trying to think of some other things here. UConn, they took a bit of a slide. They're down to 19 after they stumbled this weekend. A lot of ranked teams lost this weekend as well, so there's quite a bit of teams that remain put or didn't really drop at all. Kentucky only dropped a spot after their 1-1 week where they beat A&M and lost to Bama. Tennessee, surprisingly, no movement for them, even though they just lost at Vandy. I'm not sure if I really understand that one there. Michigan State, they rose a decent amount up to number 8 now, cracking the top 10. Shout out to Tom Izzo there. But Blake, I think when I look at this poll all around, the thing that stands out to me the most is Louisville coming in at 25. I mean, I got to give some props to my school's rivals here. They're in the top 25 for the first time since 2021. You made the post on the socials earlier today. Pat Kelsey, he's just completely sparked this program back to life, and it really didn't look too promising there for a while when they lost Kayshawn Pryor, had some other injury issues to deal with. They went on a little bit of a streak of some bad performances, but they've ripped off multiple wins in a row now, and they're looking to keep progressing as we get through ACC play, where I really think they can take advantage of what is overall a weaker conference and start to make a name for themselves towards the top.
Yeah, to put it simple, I mean, Kenny Payne, what he did there was basically a trash show. He really put the program into hell, basically. And you got a guy like Pat Kelsey who comes in super energetic, loves the program, completely bought in, gets some good transfers, gets some good, a couple good recruits. And look what it's done now. Top 25 team. They got an 8-game winning streak. You get a 5-star commit for next year. I mean, things are looking great over there in Louisville. It's good to see. I feel like the revival has been much needed for basketball or college basketball. I mean, I feel like when teams like Louisville, uh, North Carolina, Tennessee, Duke, yada yada yada. IU. I mean, they've struggled this year, but you get the point. Like some of the top names in college basketball. I feel like when those teams are good, it just makes college basketball way more enjoyable to watch. So yeah, it's great to see Pat Kelsey doing these things when, I mean, it looked rough in the beginning, like you said.
Yeah, no, I mean, they were a team that was kind of firmly sitting on the bubble there for a little bit when we were heading into conference play. And yeah, they've completely just rode the ship there and got things on the right track. And that's a testament to the job that PK's done over there. And I think that he's going to be a really, really good thing for that program long term in the years to come. And I definitely think we're going to be getting used to seeing Louisville back in the national spotlight after the dark ages of Kenny Payne there.
That's much needed too. Like I said, it's a lot better when they're good in basketball.
Yeah, it makes for me the rivalry a lot more fun when they're actually good and bringing something to the table. The rivalry game this year was actually pretty fun. The UK won
Yeah.
that one, but it was close. Louisville's definitely not a pushover anymore. But Blake, I think we're going to go ahead and get out of here and watch this national title before we go. Who you got? Notre Dame, Ohio State.
Uh, Being or Indiana citizen, I'm gonna have to go against my roots. I grew up a Notre Dame fan, but give me Ohio State. I think Jeremiah Smith, big game. Will Howard, big game. Caleb Downs, big game. Ohio State Buckeyes by 20. Actually, I lied. By 10. By 10.
Yeah, I think the Buckeyes are just too good. I mean, they've been a machine as the college football playoffs been going. Jeremiah Smith, he's looking like he's going to be generational when it comes to football.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we'll see how that one unfolds. I think Ohio State wins. I don't want to know. I don't want to say in a blowout, but I really don't expect Notre Dame to do much in this game. But I hope I'm wrong because I want to see a good game. But we'll get out of here.
Before we get out of here, though, I just want to tell the support or viewers, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be sure to catch you next episode.
Oh yeah, we love our viewers. We got a lot of content to get rolling here. College football wrapping up, the NFL's wrapping up. That means college basketball is about to take center stage, and That's what I'm here
Absolutely.
for. This is what we made the podcast for. It's about to get exciting, but yeah,
We
we'll put a
sleep in
bow.
May, as John Rothstein says.
We'll sleep in May. Shout out John Rothstein. But we'll put a bow on this episode. Get out of here for now. Everybody go enjoy the week of college basketball we got coming up. We'll have a lot more to talk about on Thursday or Friday whenever we get the crew together next. But for now, this is Luke Tackett and Blake Smith. Full Court Trap Pod signing out.
Appreciate you guys.